Good morning. Welcome to Master Strokes. We are doing episode 8. I'll say this, I've been saying it at the start of every Master Strokes. It's a very exciting series that we are doing with people who are responsible for transformation using technology. They've done some level of transformation, but the transformation journey is endless. And I'll say that again, exciting. That's why this entire series is exciting. Today I have with me Mr. Mahesh Ramamurthy, who is the heads up technology at Yes Bank, and exciting times. They are a fairly younger bank, and we've got Vishy of IBM, 122-year-old organization. Vishy, I said this during another interview yesterday, and I'll say it again that. Let me stretch this a little bit, but it's fine. You know, you're someone who believes that banks are technology companies with a banking license. Yesterday I said that IBM's not a technology company. IBM's a company that's been around for 100 years, helping transform companies and actually helping them grow. So you're actually a partner, a part of the ecosystem. You know, I'm realizing that more and more of these interviews that I'm doing. So thank you, both of you, for joining us. Mahesh, my first question will be to you. All industries are going through a change. You know, the BFSI industry, the banking industry has seen rapid change. The past 3-4 years, the pace of change has rapidly increased, and the change is coming from 3 factors. One is changing customer requirements / preferences, whatever you want to call it, technology and regulatory compliance, regulatory requirements. What is driving you all? What are the factors that are driving you all? How do you react to these changes? What are you currently focused on?
Hey, thank you, Khushi, and thanks for having me on this panel. It's been a great opportunity for us here. You rightly said, change is constant, and more importantly, in the digital age that we are in, the opportunity to adopt the digital capabilities into banking ecosystems, and more importantly, to service customer or to acquire customers is very critical. Having said that, a couple of areas that I would like to really bring forth. First and foremost is about what is the kind of customer experience one needs to drive, and that's of paramount importance. Customers are in the past used to walk into branches to fulfill their needs. It started moving to the net, and now it's fully mobile. And now it is they're expecting instant gratification or instant expectations of fulfillment of their request. Given that, what's very important for banks is not just from a servicing perspective, but even experience when you onboard a customer is very critical. And I say onboarding is when you go onto a website or you download or you get into an app where you want to probably open an account with us, it's very important for you to have a very slick, clean experience. That's going to have your first impression that's going to leave behind with that customer. So we're looking at capabilities wherein we are unifying our entire onboarding journeys for our customers across our product range. And that's very critical for us because we believe that the simplicity of what we engage with the customer is going to be of very big importance for us. Second is, as you get into this onboarding journey and using the digital and the tools that are currently available, it's about how you really experience this with data. Data is going to be very important because there is going to be huge amount of expectations from every bank, every customer. How do you use their data constructively to help them nudge or move in the right direction? And that's how we have to really look at it. So next is data that we are looking to transform. But what's more important, as we start embarking upon going more in front, there is also the need to be more risk averse, digitally savvy from a risk perspective. And that's where regulators play a big role. With the increase in digital traffic and digital transactions, there is more and more oversight from a regulatory perspective, as well as from internal risk management practices, where we are now forcing ourselves to up our game in terms of how we are in line to any transaction that's happening. We make sure that customers' money is safe, because ultimately banking is about trust and the money that you keep there. So it's very important. So we are very clear that risk management is right on top, and that is on prerogative that every bank needs to go through, and right there with the regulators. So to sum it up, when you really look at it, it's very important for us to not just do digital transformation in the front end, to digitize the processes, but also from a regulatory perspective, ensure that you fuse in the necessary security aspects and the risk aspects into your entire journey. Now, doing all of this is not is dependent on each other. You cannot keep one to the other in silos, and that is very imperative. So for us, they are not isolated, they are infused in with each other, and that's how we have to embark, we push along on our transformation journey.
Mahesh, some of the BFSI sector might be envious of your age, okay? There are large banks and very trusted banks, and been around for 50 years, 100 years, 30 years. You all are a fairly young bank, you all are like a teenager, okay? Because of that, you all really don't have huge legacy systems that you'll have to kind of follow and break out of that. Having said that, even less than 20 years is a lifetime in technology. Do you see, and how do you react to that? Is it an advantage, or do you all face similar issues? What are the technology areas that you feel the bank could be better on, which needs to, that they need to focus on more?
So, Hoshi, absolutely. While you rightly said that we probably are still just out of our teens, 19, pushing to 19, the important aspect that we need to focus on is technology is changing rapidly. So whether you're 50 or 19, you start gathering a lot of capabilities and technologies and processes over a period, even a 5-year period. But the way rapidity of the technology change, you will need to keep revisiting those every 3 to 4 years, because A, you're driving a lot of change in the strategy, in how your business outlook is, and how you really want to move forward. As a bank, Yes Bank today is moving retail. We've been always known to be digitally savvy bank, driving a lot of payment transactions through our API banking, and we've been a corporate bank to a large set of customers. We've now taken a step back, revisited our business strategy, and going granular retail, which is very important. And if you grow granular retail, it is very important for us to make sure that, as I said, the experience is there for the customers. You have data which is essentially infused into it, into the process. And what is more important is how do you engage with outside an ecosystem, which I call it as a partner ecosystem. So from a bank perspective, areas where we really are now focused on from a transformation perspective is A, in terms of the entire change in the front end of experience, onboarding, serviceability, all of that. The other area we are really focusing on digitization, which means relook at the processes. Don't overlay it with just automation. That's not going to give you results. Relook at your entire process, reimagine your process, re-engineer it to scale. Then you really come into data, which is obviously the heart of what you do, is to see how does this data really fit into your new business architecture, and how do you really bring that into supporting you not just from an acquisition perspective, but from a service and a product pricing perspective. And most importantly, as you do all of this, we should not miss out the fact that there is huge amount of all of these interactions is running with a very rich set of API. API banking, we've been leaders in API banking. We continue, and you would like to actually leapfrog that. Way back 6 years ago, we started this. We probably are the best today, but we can't be complacent. There is a need for us to revisit and really reimagine our engagement. And when you look at all of this, with the increased digitization and the digital capabilities, is about how do you create a security environment? How do you make sure that your risk teams are essentially embedded into the whole change? So yes, so there are about 5 key thematic few transformation areas that we are constantly looking at. This is right on the table right now. There's a huge amount of focus that as a bank, we have sponsorship from the management, and we're really accelerating that change. And it is important for us because that's how we are going to partner our growth and drive our growth. And last but not the least is for us to grow organically is one part, but growing with partners is going to be very key. And for going with partners, it's about how we become more digitally savvy to extend it with our rich set of integration capabilities.
That brings me to a question for you, Vishy, and thank you for your patience. Vishy, at IBM, you all have been driving transformation. The banking industry has seen, every industry is seeing a lot of change. As I said in the beginning, the banking industry is really growing fast, changing fast. This country has seen a lot more accounts. There's been a lot more load on banks, and you all have been working with this sector for decades across the world. Where do you see, what role does, he also spoke about partners, and I guess he also means, technology partners. But, what are the important technology drivers today which can help banks enhance and keep up and enhance their growth?
Right. Hey, thanks, Hoshi, for having, and thanks, Mahesh, for having us out here. Great points Mahesh did mention about. But as we are looking at IBM as a technology company, and we've been working in the banking sector across the globe for, I would say, more than decades, almost a century now, right, being a 100-year-old plus company. And we've seen that banks transform and industries transform, especially banks transform. And to the point what you earlier alluded to, for me, a bank is nothing but a technology company having a license, right? So it's as straight as that. But in one of the recent surveys which IBM did globally, world over as well, one thing is certain in 2023 is uncertainty, right? That's given. Now, with that as the backdrop or the landscape, banks have to be, to the point what Mahesh made, is two things where we are really they are focusing on. One is an experience, a consumer experience, and second is nimbleness and agility to kind of give that experience to the clients or consumers at large. And being in India, we talk about volumes and scale, right? It's not few in number. It's like massive scale, the spread and the depth. And to cater to these two requirements, today as IBM as a technology company, we are driving a lot of initiatives where banks are taking on two journeys. One is on the hybrid cloud journey and another is on the AI journey, right? When you look at the hybrid cloud journey, every bank, every organization is looking at multiple landscapes of their environment as they digitally transform and not dependent on one single landscape, which is either an on-prem or a public cloud or probably multiple public clouds and so on and so forth. So that's become the mandate or the call today, right? And banks have to deal with that and a lot of technologies around that, and I'll talk about in a minute as well. The second is on AI, where AI probably few quarters or few years back used to be a post-facto thing, right? I will do this digital transformation. By the way, I will also do AI into it. Today, the entire pivot has changed. Today, is it AI first and then look at things differently, right? So is AI part of this digital transformation of every process is what the bank is going to? So it's no more become a post-facto, it's come in the forefront. So, and which is what we call from plus AI to AI plus, right? So there's a fundamental shift which is happening. And both these drivers pivot around 5 areas, and all of them Mahesh alluded to. One is on data, second is on automation, third is, of course, on modernizing your own processes, because if you were to, while Yes Bank is a relatively teenage bank, right, probably getting in the 20s, right? So, but constantly modernize. So the point what Mahesh made is every 3-4 years, you need to revisit and keep up to space, because the fundamental outcome of a bank is to give that enriched client experience and with great amount of agility and nimbleness, right? So the third is modernize. The fourth is, of course, underpinning everything is enterprise-grade security. Because end of the day, banks, as Mahesh said, is an institution where people go for, trust it the most, because it's their hard-earned money, savings, which is there with the bank, and trust becomes a very critical factor. And that's where enterprise-class security really comes into play. And of course, while you do all of them, how sustainably are you doing these operations, right? You could burn the carbon footprint and then you could operate it beautifully for that, but are you giving back to the environment, right? And that's becoming an increased focus in today's world because of the climate change and all of that. It's becoming an increased focus of sustainable. Now, these are the five themes, I would say, where technology is being driven, right? So be it on the data front, you're going right from collection of the data from various sources to cataloging it, to how do you do governance, and so on and so forth, and bringing analytics around that. Automation is just not about RPA or kind of re-engineering a process, right? It's bringing intelligence into that automation, right? That's even more important, right? How do you bring intelligent automation in a trade finance operations? How do you bring automation, intelligence automation in probably a treasury applications, right? And so on and so forth. There could be many use cases. And modernizing it, how do you are able to nimbly modernize? Because today banks are not only competing with their competitor banks, they're competing with the new age fintechs as well. Sometimes they cooperate, sometimes they collaborate, and sometimes they compete, right? So it's all the three facets they have to wear. And it always is important that, am I able to launch a service for an enriched client experience overnight? Or do I have to go to the legacy good old way of coding, which will take 6 months of testing, 9 months of development, and 1 year to launch, right? Today organizations which compete with banks are able to spin off applications and technologies overnight, right? And launch a new program or promotion, right? So that's why modernizing the architectures to stay nimble is key. And then, of course, security not only just restricted to firewalls and your data center and DMZ and militarized zone, but it goes at the edge level with 5G also coming into play, which will have a major impact in way industries operate from now. And banks would be the first one to kind of leapfrog, because as a vertical, banks are way ahead of the curve in terms of technology adoption and drive, and actually not only enabling, but kind of consuming technology for their businesses. So 5G is going to play a big role. So security at the edge, at the data center, at the core, everything is going to play, because end of the day, customers looking at trust and, of course, sustainable banking. So these are the 5 areas I would say. And, of course, in all of this, AI would be a part and parcel, right? When we look at our technologies within IBM, whether we talk about Cloud Pak for data or automation or security, there are generative AI models which are being part of these technologies now. So it's becoming AI inside than as a post facto.
He spoke about AI. So my next question is actually on AI. Are you all utilizing AI and automation technologies? And, you all have this personal banking chat assistant. It's called, one second, Yes Robot.
Yes.
Are you all planning to embed AI into it and enhance customer experience?
It's a great question, Hoshi, because now we've been one of the pioneers in terms of how we introduce the chat-related engagements with the interactions with customers. With the evolution of experience expectations, one of the key areas we are focused, I talked about data. So data cannot be used well if you do not have the right levels of understanding of the data. But the right levels of understanding of the data is when you can get some knowledge. But if you have to use that knowledge to create intelligence, you need AI to be there available to you. And to that aspect, I think bank is invested in toolkits, toolings, people who are now coming into the game to help us bring that AI into the forefront and back end, both sides. In the forefront is a customer interaction. How do you create nudges? How do you create certain patterns? How do you enable customer manage risk in the front end, right? Because if a transaction is being done, how do you bring AI-enabled risk in the front end rather than the bank by itself wanting to be the custodian of it? That's a big shift we are looking at. Stepping back is about how do you use AI into your entire process of product pricing, risk management in the back end. I think there is a fair bit of work that we are doing using AI on our entire data capabilities. And data capabilities means the data lakes, the entire data warehouse. How do you really bring that all on top of the AI capabilities? What you talked about is the operational capabilities, how do you digitize and digitize the service side of the story. And it's very important to understand that while the bank may have RPAs, to a point that Vishy mentioned, RPAs probably give you that incremental effect for short term. But if you really need to make it more better efficient and efficient for scale, that's when you bring those, you re-engineer your process, bring AI to help you to say that here, you know what, this process essentially can be better done by using these processes and the data in a more straight-through processing, or manage the exceptions better and then get that into your completeness. So to us, AI is now coming forefront because one of our transformation themes on digitization is how do I do more for less, and how do I manage risk through the whole process. So AI becomes a very, very key factor along with the machine learning aspects on that aspect. So for example, I'll give you recon. Reconciliation is a very, we've done reconciliation. We started with the earlier books. We went into Excels. We went to an application software. But today, a reconciliation has to understand patterns. A reconciliation has to understand what is happening with respect to your transactions that are happening, and it infuses into the AML part of the story as well as your inline transactions. So banks now are starting to use that journey much more better with AI. And we are in that process. I wouldn't say we've achieved it, but the benefits of AI is best derived when you know the use case to get it there. If you think that AI is a great capability, it is. But it would remain a tech if you do not know how to apply it. And that's where I would personally believe that it needs a fair, involved discussion, not just by the technology teams, but by a team which is a co-created team, which comes in not just from the partner, but the business, the risk, the compliance, and the tech team sitting together to be able to see what's the value proposition you're bringing. And that's what we're really doing as a part of some of the transformation we are doing. So clearly a great opportunity for banks, a great opportunity for us to create more secure engagements with the customer, and also move the risk in front. And AI also now has started to help banks in software development side. Now there's a very interesting aspects coming up. Still early birds from a banking perspective. Maybe some of the big fintechs do it, but I do believe that over time, when you go into DevSecOps and the whole CDCI pipeline, the infusion of AI into that process is going to significantly reduce time to change and manage risk better.
Wonderful. It's a great response. Let me come to data privacy, cybersecurity. Obviously, digital transformation has brought in a lot of data, a lot of new technologies, and then there is a parallel industry that's kind of running, to get into your systems. Okay, it comes with huge cybersecurity threats. I think yesterday I heard 2,200 hacks or break-ins a day across India. So 39 every hour or 39 every minute. They just looked at some data yesterday. How do you handle cybersecurity? What's your reaction? How do you ensure that your customers' data, you keep your customers' money, all of it is safe? So what are you doing in that space?
I think cybersecurity and data security has taken center stage now. And regulators are also becoming very, very focused on it, right? And you talked about how data starts as proliferation of capable digital information goes in, and the expansion of that comes with it the risk. And with the risk is about how well you manage the data. So to me, I think cybersecurity, of managing how you manage your entire infrastructure, how do you create the right frameworks and the processes to be continuously in line, in step with the changes that are evolving, is a big area of focus. We probably have a layered defense capabilities. we work with a lot of partners, both from a tooling perspective, from an operational control perspective, and from a governance perspective. And we have to keep triaging this because every day a new threat actor throws in some challenge for the bank and for the industry itself. So we have to be on our guard. And so more importantly, do you think, have I achieved the nirvana state? Never. That's never, because you're always going to be, you have to be watchful, be more in terms of being detective rather than trying to go in the back end. So there is a lot of investments. Today we invest over 35% of our budget into cybersecurity, of our tech budgets, and that's massive. One would have earlier thought of 7-8%, but that's no longer a game. What do you do? Everything has a security angle to it. Now, coupled with that is data. Now, when you put data and the data security that you really have to put in, we talked about it. If trust is the core reason for a bank's existence of a customer's money, it is very important for us to have the data security in place. Now, the government itself is coming out with data protection laws. The regulators are very focused in terms of how you manage data, how do you host the data, how do you protect the data, whether it is on-premise or on the cloud. I think there is a fair bit of, I would say, actions underway. And banks are possibly being regulated entities, are subject to, rightfully so, huge amount of focus. So yes, the combination of cybersecurity with data security is imperative today. No one can afford to be lax in it. And even for a moment, you cannot say, I'll take a back seat there. It doesn't work, period. So which means that the ability of every entity to do that, every entity to lean in onto partners, because the intelligence is there across, to bring in the right partners into your ecosystem to help you better manage is most critical. And we are no less there. I think we possibly, from a banking perspective, we really are now working with some industry leading products, OEMs like IBM, industry leader players who really come to us to help us manage it as well as govern it. So all the three is what we're looking at across a multi-layered stack of our entire security layer. So as I said, security budgets only go up year on year. It is must have for you to do business. It's no longer a good to have, it's a must have.
Vishy, I want to come to you because it's your responsibility. I'm reminded of a real life incident some years ago, maybe 10, 12, 15 years ago, where I had to spend a night with the police on the team. Okay, this was a physical situation, and the cops were explaining to me that no, we need to think ahead of. We were chasing something, actually long distance. Something had happened. I was helping someone. He says that chor hamesha do step aage sochta hai, whatever you think.
Right.
Similar situation in cybersecurity.
Right.
Okay, and attacks. That industry runs from different places. You don't know where they're kind of coming in from, what intentions. Every day there's something new, like he mentioned. What is IBM doing to, and the responsibility is yours, in fact, more of IBM's than the users, because on one hand, whilst you're enabling digital transformation, you need to keep the whole thing secure. 35% is 1/3 of your budgets in security. What is IBM doing in this space to ensure that banks and the customers remain secure?
Yeah. So within IBM, we being across the globe in multiple countries, and we host a lot of the banks in our own clouds as well across the globe. In fact, we have a financial services cloud running in United States of America, which conforms to all the regulatory norms of US, right? So when we adopted security for ourselves, so as they say, charity begins at home, right? So we started it within ourselves, and we built in a lot of technologies. And as Mahesh pointed out, that the bad actors are always going to stay ahead of the curve no matter what, right? So you have to be ahead of them at every instant of time. So I won't be surprised tomorrow Mahesh says that 35% has gone up to 50%. Frankly, I'm sure you will also not be surprised, right? So you have to stay ahead of the curve. And to that effect, a lot of technologies, what we have adopted internally to IBM is what we are bringing into our clients. be it on the SIM solution, be it on the digital trust threat management, be it on the source solutions. And now we have gone further into kind of complementing the entire portfolio of technologies to an XDR, X-Force detection and response, right? That's become, because the fundamental premise of a security is zero trust, right? That is the pivot, right? Trust for bank and zero trust in case of security, right? So it's like Siamese twins, if I were to say, right? So everything revolves around that, and all the technologies which were brought in, either SIM, threat management, digital trust, XDR, and now the latest acquisition within IBM, what we had is going a step further, again to the point of 5G and the edge, is getting into attack surface management, right? So today, banks and employees of banks, or any industry for that matter, right, a lot of edge devices, a lot of transactions are happening at the edge, right? So how vulnerable is that device while you're taking care of the core, which is your data side of it, which is your infra side of it, which is between infra, the traffic between an on-prem to a public cloud and so on and so forth. But now the next layer is at the edge, right? How vulnerable is that device or that entry point which is exposed to the external world? How less vulnerable is it, right? Because that becomes an aperture for the bad actor to even enter, right? So we have we have gotten technologies to what we call as ASM, attack surface management, through our platform called as Randori, which does this particular thing. So you could say that Hoshi's email ID, I want to just know this laptop of Hoshi, how vulnerable it is. And it tells a vulnerability wearing the lens of the hacker or the bad actor, not the lens of the security expert, right? So it tells from that lens so that you will know at any given point of time what are the exposure points in my data layer, in my infra layer, and in my edge layer, how vulnerable and exposed points are, and then you take corrective actions, right, to plug those holes and those exposures, right? So going from the core of the infra to the data security to all the technologies around digital trust, threat management, and XDR, and then attack surface management, all this is where IBM brings that entire portfolio. And as Mahesh said, Yes Bank has adopted the security technologies from IBM as well.
Let's shift gears, okay? Now, technology obviously is an exciting space to be willing to accept adventures, challenges, live on the edge yourself, which most of us have been. Want to ask you that if you weren't into technology, what would you be doing?
Interesting one.
What?
Very
And
interesting.
would it have been as exciting as?
Well, I've always had a passion for cars and automobiles. So for me, I think, and I continue to remain passionate about it. I've always dreamt of being an automobile engineer, but circumstances moved me here. I've never, but yes, if you ask me where would I have been, my passion would have been to drive probably a digital car garage to do better, with an ability to touch and feel more, and be mechanical in terms of what you can do there. It's something that I've always been passionate about. I'm not going to give it up for sure. Probably still pursue it in a way, but something. If you ask, yeah, I would have started a garage. I would have been probably more looking at it more differently, but yes, I'm looking forward to be next soon.
So let me ask you, you obviously would then know about engines, and I think our generation grew up with carburetors and spark plugs and all of it. So that's an engine that I understand. Have you kept up with the new generation of engines and the new gearbox, so, the MPFIs, or, there's something else, and the AMTs, which have now become CVTs, and so have you kept up with, because today vehicles also are digitally driven in some manner, there are sensors and all of.
Absolutely.
So you kept up with what's happening there?
Right up to the F1.
Wow.
That's
so
awesome.
For me, the maximum I read up is how the F1 technologies essentially over time. I don't think it will come in right now to mainstream. But to me, I think the ability of the F1 engines, which are right there in terms of performance, but obviously they have not gone into the electric side of the story. But in terms of how they operate and how they react the combustion, to what you see on the other side now with the hydrogen, now shifting from electricity to hydrogen. It's going to be very interesting. And obviously the gearboxes, we used to be very wary of moving away from manual shift, because that's where you get the excitement. And you can choose which one you need to slot in. But now some of these don't give you that. But yes, the DCTs probably are, I'm very excited on DCTs because it gives you faster shifting. IVTs are a bit slower. AMTs are probably just, it's just aping you what your physical one. So to me, I think different grading. But yeah, pretty much I'm right on top there.
And do you enjoy driving too?
Oh yeah, I do. Except for off late, I prefer to be driven because your mind is not focused on the road. So it's better not to get there.
Vishy, you're also in the thick of technology and obviously enjoying it. What would you be doing if you weren't in the technology space?
Yeah, but that's more a revelation. I've known Mahesh for so many years. I didn't know this part of Mahesh, and thanks for asking that question. So I know the other part of Mahesh as well, what he would have been, but very interesting, Mahesh. Yeah, probably if I was not in technology or sales, I'd have been a teacher, right? And I love teaching. So generally, I love teaching science subjects, and that's what I'm passionate about. And so probably I taught my kids, so I teach my daughter as well, but I really enjoy, I'm passionate about teaching, right? Learning something new, scripting it in a language which the student would really understand. More often than not, what happens is you know everything, so you assume that the other person knows it, right? So you teach at a very different level, but the challenging part is to come down to the student's level and explain that in that language, and that I find is interesting because every student is not the same, right? So each one has got a very different way of learning things, right? And in the process, you tend to learn even more, right? While the subject might be the same, you would have taught it multiple times over, but the way you teach it to different students is very different. So you always are on your toes because you know the thing, right? So it's how you articulate it back. So probably that would have been something which I would have done.
So I have two follow-up questions
Sure.
for you. So you said science, so you'd also be teaching technology.
Yep.
So you would be creating more Vishys then.
Hopefully.
Okay. And would you bring AI into learning?
Yeah, of course, at some point, but that's more a supervised learning, no pun intended, right? Supervised learning, of course. And yes, there would be some element of AI, but I'm probably a little traditional old believer of the classic method of teaching, right? And I find sometimes, I was reading the paper the other day also, that the art of writing has really come down, right? And I believe that the more you write, the more you memorize, right? Till the time you don't write it with your own pen and put the pen to the paper and nib to the paper, you never absorb things, right? Now, that's, I find very interesting in today's generation, that's just kind of shrinking, right? Because of various digital forms of learning, right? To be fair. But I'm a little believer, so AI, will it be there? Probably very limited in my scheme of things.
Coming back to work, personal related styles. Both of you gentlemen, and we'll let Mahesh take it first.
Sure.
Have to work across different ecosystems, different kinds of people. He spoke about different level of students, their understanding, their ability to receive. Same thing happens in work-life situations. So it's just not your own team. You also spoke about building something involving other departments. Technology is no longer, we know it, the function only of the IT department or the tech department or whatever, or the digital department, whatever it's called. You have to carry several people, the whole ecosystem together, plus external partners, plus your bosses, plus all of it. What's your style? What's your leadership style to ensure that everyone comes on to the same objective and moves forward? Because there's huge amount of progress and future of the bank that's riding on someone like you.
Loaded question, but let me put it this way, that every day is a learning. That's how we go. And you have to, and I have a habit of being a bit old school like him, because I do like to write down. So I have my fountain pen and my book, and I have to write down. And that write down really helps me reflect, because every day morning I do take about 10-15 minutes of my time to really go through what's been the experience in the past, what have you learned, what are things that you need to change yourself. And you were put into different situations every day. In fact, every 10-15 minutes you have different situations that you, not just with yourself, but with your teams, with your management, with your partners, work, family. So it's very interesting. You sit back and reflect your responses. So the way I look at it is, do you react or do you respond? Or do you help? Because at the end of the day, you have to keep balancing. And the way I look at it is, there are times when your levels of patience is tested. You then react a bit and then you pull yourself back. There are times when you say, you know what, let me absorb, let me hear, and then probably think and respond. And there are times when you know that you have to be like a coach to tell the team and to tell the person with whom you're talking, why don't you look at this? Why don't you look at that? Why don't you look at options? Because as a manager or as a leader, you start playing very different roles, and you have to be careful where you are. There are times when you play a real bossy role, when you have to just push the game. There are times when you step back and play a leadership role, where you say that, hey guys, you are supposed to hear, this is what we are here for. This is the purpose of you being here. These are the KPIs we have signed up for. This is what the bank wants. How do you organize yourself to go there? And in that process, how do you help people? You could be nudging people, you could be coaching, you could be pushing someone the right way. So I think in a day, you transcend multiple phases and states, the way I look at it. And the more you learn about it, I think with experience, with age, you tend to absorb a few things. You then try to, and I've really not just about what I react, but I've started to reduce that, to try and say, can I respond rather than reaction? Because then at a leadership level, when you react, you think you've achieved something, but actually you hurt some people. So that balance, I don't think I'm still there, but there is a fair bit of constant reflection that is important. And that's how I operate. And because you have to know how you manage your stakeholders, you have to manage your team, you have to know how to manage your partners. And each of them have different expectations from you, you have different expectations from them. So bringing all of that, aligning to what you want or what the organization wants is very important. And you reflect back in life, yeah, when you go back home, do I carry work home? The answer is yes. I would be saying no. Do I want to say less about it? I want to do less about it? Yes. So I think that's where you start drawing up a balance. So a lot of learnings, a lot of stuff that you have to keep yourself. I would say patience is important, and it's something that you learn as you be in these kind of positions day in, day out.
It comes with experience and age also, so it does. Vishy, let's hear about what do you think is your leadership style?
I think it's more, of course, it's kind of evolved over a period of time, right? It keeps changing, the styles keep changing as well, right? So I remember when I was a manager first time, almost 18, 19 years back, and you're a superstar performer as an individual contributor, and then you become a manager. And I think that's the first aha moment, if I were to say, in the career, right? That's the first one, right? Because then you actually, the amount of transformation I personally had and the style I had to adopt took a lot of time to get there, because what you did and you were a star as an individual to what you are as leading a team as a manager is very different, right? You generally gravitate to doing things because you just came out of that cocoon, right? So a lot of transformation really happened, and styles were to try and do less and respond and coach the teams to do more, right? So bring in your wealth of experience. And it's not about just offering solutions for every problem, right? But for the teams to find out the solution, even though to the point what Mahesh made, you immediately react and say that, hey, you can do this way, right? I mean, it's but natural because you have done that, been there, done that before. To now leading the team to unearth the solution by themselves. And that's the art of coaching, I would say. So, and now the second aha moment is when you lead larger teams and larger organizations, right? Over a period of time, you start learning now you're from leading a team of young professionals to now leading a team of seasoned, matured executives, right? Is a very different, the second aha moment, right? Because the level of maturity you have to play with those matured executives, seasoned executives rolling up to you, has a very different style as what you did about 15 or 18 years back when you were first time manager. So that's the second aha moment. That's more of delegating and bringing in accountability within the organization, within the executives, right? Feeling a sense of a shared purpose and vision, right? Those become of prime importance, right? Is every line management or every executive sharing the same vision and the same sense of purpose as what I'm sharing? It becomes the only task at hand. Because if that is disintegrated, then no matter whatever be the leadership style, you will not reach the goal, right? Collectively as a team. So that is more of constantly sharing the sense of purpose and bringing in that accountability within the leadership is primarily critical, right? And that's I would say more a leadership, and it's constantly evolving over a period of time. It's not that every day is a new learning for me, right? While I've done this business for so many years, and Mahesh has been in the banking space for so many years, but I'm sure for me, every day is a new challenge, new learning, which is where you absorb, reflect, and then open up the chapter the next day as well, right? So that's been mine.
Thank you, Ishi. I wanted to relate it to your other alternate career choice,
Right.
but we'll kind of summarize here, and thank you, gentlemen. I enjoyed the conversation. Very exciting times for the banking industry. I actually heard yesterday or day before that the work that the government has done has increased the number of accounts, and they added some number I heard, but it has to be verified, is 700 million more people have access to banking. So exciting times for you all, challenging times, adventurous. I love the conversation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hoshi. Thank you, Mahesh.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.